The MLB Trade Deadline is just over 1 week away, and the Toronto Blue Jays are set to potentially be one of the most aggressive buyers. Jeff Passan, the GOAT baseball insider, just released his top 50 trade deadline targets, and the Blue Jays have been linked to a ton of them. In this video, we're going to break down and discuss all of the big targets that Jeff thinks could be a Toronto Blue Jay. Shout out to Jeff Passan for releasing this article, MLB's top 50 trade deadline candidates. Now, we went through this just a little bit on the Blue Jays Today show a couple days prior, but I wanted to take this opportunity and really dive into 6 of the top guys that Jeff brings up who I think at least one of will be a Toronto Blue Jay in at least 1 week's time. I think that all things considered, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be major buyers, and I do think that one of the 6 guys that we're going to talk about in this video is going to end up being a Toronto Blue Jay. Now, sadly, he does not link the Blue Jays to Eugenio Suarez, who's got a 90% chance to get traded. That sucks. It would be a long shot anyways. I do think that the Yankees are probably going to go heavy in on him. That would suck, but that is just the reality. The first guy, though, that he does link to the Toronto Blue Jays, which we're going to talk about here, is Steven Kwan. As you can see, Toronto Blue Jays right down there. Now, he does only have a 20% chance to get traded, so if I'm being completely honest, Steven Kwan, even though he'd be awesome, I kind of doubt he's on the move, as does Jeff Passan. But looking over at Kwan, if I'm being completely transparent with you, I actually don't know if this is the guy that I want to see the Toronto Blue Jays go out and target. Yes, he's awesome. Yes, he's got a 288 batting average. His OPS is 750. He's got 11 stolen bags, so he's good on the base paths. Looking over at his Baseball Savant page, there's a lot of stuff to like. He's good defensively speaking. He really fits into that mold of like being contact first, with the Toronto Blue Jays are this year. I mean, #1 in batting average, 2nd in on-base percentage. Steven Kwan certainly wouldn't hurt you in that regard. But I think that when I look at somebody like a Steven Kwan, I kind of think about what Whit Merrifield talked to us about when he was on our show, which is, do you want to kind of break up this lineup, break up this rhythm for somebody that's going to add 20 or 30 OPS points? Eugenio Suarez is one thing, right? That's 35, 36 home runs you're adding to the lineup. Steven Kwan, even though he's great, he's kind of similar to a lot of the guys that we have, right? He's kind of like a Nathan Lucas, kind of like a, there's so many names that I could bring up, kind of like an Ernie Clement, so I like Steven Kwan, but for the price that they'd have to pay for him, and, they would be a sizable amount considering he's a free agent in 2028, if I'm being completely honest, I think that this is one of those ones that is less likely, and I don't know if he'd be my #1 target for the Jays. The next guy on this list that he has us connected to is Sandy Alcantara. As you can see, we're right there, and he's got a lot of teams connected to Sandy, even some teams that might even be sellers, like Baltimore and Arizona, and that's ultimately because Sandy will have another year of control. 2027 is when he's going to be a free agent, and I think he's got those teams there because this season has not been it for Sandy Alcantara. This is a really good player. We know that when he's at his ceiling, when he's playing his best, he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. He is not at his ceiling. He's not playing his best right now. Guy's got almost a 1.5 whip, an ERA of 7.14. The FIP is at 4.66. So even though it's a lot lower than his ERA, it's still not great. And if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, and I just saw right here, 77 earned runs, which leads all of MLB. So if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm looking at somebody like Sandy, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this guy would be awesome for 2027 because hopefully Pete Walker can go into the lab, they can figure this stuff out, but I don't know if I necessarily want to trade for this guy as our ace pitcher that we're bringing in to start wildcard game 1, because that's what this Blue Jays team is looking for. Sandy right now has a lot of stuff that he has to figure out. We know he can be great. Looking at 2022, that's a 2.28 ERA, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is when he won the Cy Young. So this is somebody that when he's on is better than anybody. He's just not on right now. And I also don't know if I'd be willing to give up Arjun Namala and Trey Savage to get it done. You guys let me know in the comments down below. Like, would you be willing to give up one of or both of those guys to get a guy like Sandy? Because with the amount of I guess competition that Jeff Passan's predicting, I think it would cost, looking over at the prospects, this guy and this guy, or this guy and somebody, or what have you. It's going to cost a lot of these individuals for somebody that is ultimately an experiment at this point. Now, kind of the opposite of Sandy, somebody who is just going to be the rental, but who's playing really good right now, doesn't have the same ceiling as a Sandy Alcantara, but still could be really good, is Seth Lugo. And this is where we're getting into the guys where I think actually have a very good chance of getting traded and actually have a very good chance of becoming a Toronto Blue Jay. Jeff Passan says he's got an 80% chance to get traded. Less competition here. You can see Toronto just behind the Chicago Cubs and Houston right there. And Seth Lugo is having a phenomenal season. 2.9 WAR to his name, a 2.94 ERA, a whip of just over 1, and over 107 innings pitched. This is good. This is somebody that I can see getting added into that rotation and not becoming a project for these Toronto Blue Jays. Now, the one thing that I will say about Seth Lugo, which, you know, I have a little bit of cynicism or skepticism towards, is that his expected numbers aren't great. There's a lot of blue here, and when we look at the FIP, it's also not phenomenal. But this is a veteran. This is somebody who's been there, who's done that, and looking at his career, he's got a 3.33 ERA. So, like, this is somebody who's had an MLB career, who knows how to pitch in the big moments. I mean, dude was Cy Young 2 last year. We forget that. Seth Lugo was the Cy Young 2 last year. Obviously lost, but still, 5.4 WAR that guy had, and a 3 ERA, 16 wins. Win-losses don't mean a whole lot for pitchers, but still, 16 is a lot of wins and over 200 innings. So this is somebody that could come in immediately and just start eating innings for the Jays, and if they were to get him, would undeniably be in that playoff rotation. I don't know if he'd be the Game 1 guy, but he would definitely be at least Game 2 and assuredly in a wild card series if the Toronto Blue Jays happen to be in a wild card. Also, good thing about Seth Lugo, you probably won't have to give up a crazy amount of the prospects. He's a free agent in 2026. It shouldn't cost this guy. It shouldn't cost this guy. Maybe it has to cost one of these guys because the competition for pitching is just going to be that high. But that's a price that I'd be willing to pay for somebody with an ERA that is below 3. The next person that Jeff Passan links to the Jays that really does have a great chance of getting moved and potentially being a Jay is Mitch Keller. And I'd be surprised at this point if you haven't heard of this name. Pittsburgh Pirates, they're terrible. I would love it if they wanted to trade Paul Skeens, but sadly that is probably not going to happen. But if you called them and you asked for Mitch Keller, they would listen. He's got a 3.48 ERA, a win-loss record of 3-10, so just goes to show you how bad Pittsburgh really is. 119 innings to his name and a whip of 1.143. Now, he doesn't have nearly as much of a seasoned resume as Seth Lugo does. The career numbers aren't even half as good. Like 4.43 ERA, that's fine, that's serviceable. Seth Lugo has been an ace in the past. Mitch Keller has never been that guy. So if they were to trade for him, just know that this is somebody that would be coming in and probably taking over that Bassett role when Bassett walks in free agency next year, assuming that they don't re-sign him. But that's the good thing about Mitch Keller, right? With Seth Lugo, you only have the 1 year of control, or I guess 2 months of control. With Mitch Keller, you got him till 2029. The pitching run value this year has been phenomenal. The fastball run value has been phenomenal. And he does have a lot of pitches. So honestly, comparing him to a Chris Bassett type, I think is a pretty good comp. This is somebody that would come in and be part of this rotation for time. The one thing that I'm concerned about with Mitch Keller, is the fact that he's not necessarily that Game 1 starter, right? If we're looking to have that guy come in here and pitch Game 1 and go toe-to-toe with a Tarek Skubal or toe-to-toe with a Max Fried, even though we have been able to hit guys like that before, this isn't going to be that dude. Seth Lugo maybe could be that guy. Like, I'm not going to make an argument that Seth Lugo is as good as Tarek Skubal because, well, nobody's as good as Tarek Skubal other than maybe Paul Skeens. But Mitch Keller would be part of that rotation. I just don't think he'd be that number 1 ace that Toronto's necessarily looking for. This would be a help you right now and help you for the future type of deal. Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now everyone, back to the content. Jeff Passan has the Toronto Blue Jays as the #1 team right here. Notably speaking, he's got Toronto 3rd on Mitch Keller. He's got Toronto 3rd again on Chris Bubic, whatever. But Zack Gallen, and I'll follow that up with Merrill Kelly, because those are going to be the two guys that round out this list here. They are both as the #1 team, or he's got Toronto, excuse me, as the #1 team associated with them. Now, Gallen is an interesting one because this is kind of a project. He has played very well against the New York Mets and the New York Yankees. We had Bob Nightingale on the show a week ago or so, and he was talking about how Zack Gallen just thrives in those big moments. So that's definitely something to note, but this is definitely somebody that you have got to know how to fix him if you are trading for him. Just like the Houston Astros fixed Yusei Kikuchi last year when we traded Yusei to them, we would need to know that, or at least Pete Walker would need to know that if they're going for Zack Gallen. The good thing about Gallen, though, is that his price tag would undeniably be pretty low, and his ceiling could be just as high as anybody. Kind of similarly to a Sandy Alcantara, but with 1 year less of control. Now, finally, there's Merrill Kelly. And I think if you want to have if you wanted to create a guy that's the most realistic for Toronto to trade for, but also the best option, this would be that guy. Because if somebody's going to come to me and say, oh, who do you want the Toronto Blue Jays to trade for? I'm going to say Paul Skeens. That's not realistic. This is somebody that's actually very realistic and genuinely would make a serious impact. He's got a 3.32 ERA on the year, 3.1 WAR, over 122 innings pitched. So he has been eating for those Arizona Diamondbacks. Whip just over 1, and this is somebody that in his career, in his down years, like his worst year ever back in 2021, he was still very serviceable. He's never really been bad, and he's had years where he's finished at this level. I mean, 2022 and 2023, those are two back-to-back seasons of effectively 4 WAR, and he's on the exact same pace right now. 36 years old, he has been around the block for those Diamondbacks. He's literally been with Arizona his entire career, so he would have been with them when they kind of made that playoff push and everything like that. So he's pitched in the playoffs, and he's done so at a very high level in his career with a 3.76 career ERA. Looking over at his Baseball Savant page, it's not filled with red here, but I look at the pitching run value, that's great. The off-speed run value is phenomenal, and I love the pitch mix. 6 whole pitches right here that he can work with, and he throws all of them, right? 25% on the change, 25 on the four-seamer, 21 on the cutter. Like, he throws all of these pitches a ton. So kind of that Chris Bassett type as well, where I'm not going to blow you away necessarily with high velocity, but he's just got a lot of great junk in the trunk that he can throw and he can get people out. Looking over at Jeff Passan's article, he's got a 70% chance to get traded. This is somebody that is probably going to be on the move, and Toronto is listed as the #1 team. I would not be surprised at all if Merrill Kelly would be a Blue Jay. But that is the 6 guys that I think, out of all of this article, I would make a strong argument that one of them is going to be a Jay in the next week. But you guys let me know in the comments down below, who do you got? Folks, thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to hit that like, smash that subscribe button, and as always, go Jays go.